your microphones because this is an absolute forum. I'm not the one that's going to be talking. I'm just going to sort of facilitate it because it was a topic that I wanted to discuss, artificial intelligence. And so my goal of this summit is to receive answers from professionals like you in order to develop additional questions to just keep that trend going. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm in the construction industry. It's the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. It's AEC, if you run across that. Over the less than a decade, I've been slowly appreciating technology, so much so that I want to develop products for the industry that I work in and beyond. So I use technology in my day job, which is construction management. And tomorrow I'll be in my third hackathon ever. So I'm getting an idea of what nerds do. And I've come to the consensus that artificial intelligence and technology is a major contributor and even a necessity for the evolution of humankind. So I'm thinking AI can be replaced with dangerous construction jobs and nursing like we've experienced this past couple weeks or more for RNA and DNA viruses that do not have immunizations. On to the questions. During this presentation, I'd like to ask these three questions. I have some sub-questions with them just to keep things going, but I have a feeling that you all will be able to provide enough feedback and education so I can learn from you. So basically the first question is, well, it'll be a sub-question or two questions. Do you fear AI? Because you know, that's the big topic of discussion. And what are the advantages of bringing AI to the market?
I can just say that I have used TensorFlow and a deep learning pipeline for one of my projects, and that was to do what is called auto scoring of low stakes formative assessment for students in middle school. So basically it's a first pass. There's science and engineering questions that are the students presented with a bunch of material, and partway through, as they're trying to solve problems, they're supposed to think out loud or type in sort of what they're thinking about, how they believe a particular phenomenon is happening. And we kind of do a fancy text classification on it and see if there's evidence of misunderstanding. And in that event, there's certain additional prompts we give them for them to refine their answers. And in a low stakes environment, when it's sort of anonymized data, helping to scaffold the students' responses, I had no qualms about pursuing that work. But understanding that the AI landscape is fraught with dangers. And I would just say that I am not panicked about AI. I think it's fascinating. And like all things that are coming at us at 1,000,000 miles an hour, it can be overwhelming. But I am an optimist and I see the glass as being half full.
So what are some examples of your fears?
There's well-documented, and I think this is true for most tools, but there's well-documented evidence that the training process for sort of deep learning applications, what often happens is the training process encodes prejudices and it encodes our prior beliefs. And that in itself isn't super harmful, except for the predominant view in society that computers are always right. And that, you know what I mean? So there's this notion of whatever the AI engine thinks is happening must be happening. So we tend to, as a society, lend a lot of credence to math and computer programs. We see them as flawless. And it's very difficult to talk about how the training process itself can contaminate or skew the answers in the future facing applications. So anyway, so I do worry about that. It's like an encoding of our failings as humans. You know, typically what happens is a human, you know, the classifier or whatever is learning from humans, and humans are failable. Yeah. I don't have any apocalyptic visions about at the moment. I mean, many really clever people who I struggle to understand seem to have sincere worries about computers taking over. And I've tried several times to relate to that perspective. And I come up empty. I understand the notion of, you know, like all technology tends to enable one individual to leverage their power. So it tends to reinforce existing power structures. So if you are in a position with a lot of capital, the tools of machine learning and artificial intelligence can be deployed much easier. It's a smaller investment for you, and you can profit from it a lot better. And typically that means disintermediating some piece of your pipeline, typically, you know, workers. So I think the unemployment threat maybe exists. I don't know. Yeah. Sorry.
I'm going to let someone else talk, but I do have a comment on the unemployment issue. Does anybody else have anything to say about that? Any of your fears?
I was interested in what Noah was speaking about just now with regard to how the training of AIs reflects biases from those doing the training, obviously, and it presents us with a responsibility to put together, you know, properly diverse training data sets. So, I mean, that is something I guess that we, you know, have some ability and some responsibility to mitigate, for sure. Thanks.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Mind if I add that to that as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Kind of also building a little bit on what Noah was saying. My perspective on AI really, in terms of what it's being used for anymore, is I feel like the most amount of money is being put towards research funding that's understanding how to control human behavior. And basically the reason that you would do that is because you want to be able to control like social and political and economic wealth, right? And so like literally we're creating a tool that's like very good at basically like being a perfect tool set for totalitarianism is kind of how I view it personally. Mm-hmm. And I find it really worrisome that we have AI that's like really good at doing that. And there's research that shows it's really good at doing it.
Yeah, the research. Anybody else? How about something positive? I was thinking, in regards to people potentially losing jobs, the way I look at it is there'd be different job creation, because I saw a stat that in 2000, we'll say 65% of the existing jobs, careers, positions in this world will be non-existent. So I think that technology lends to that, and that's how we're going to get to that point if that stat is in fact true, and I don't see how it can't. I mean, we're evolving and the world is changing. And does anybody else have anything about advantages of bringing AI to the market?
Hi, this is Lily. I mean, one of the things that it seems like we're not really talking about AI so much as deep learning, machine learning. We don't have AI yet, But it seems to me that if we were able to enjoy a huge societal change where the basis of our society is not that the Puritan ethic of your life meaning is derived from your work, but that your life meaning is derived from something else, like maybe your creativity or your passion. And then we were to do something as they have in Norway, where everybody gets a guaranteed living income. We could then AI taking over the scary, crappy jobs.
Yes.
Be awesome, right? But it's a complete societal change. And, anyway, so that to me is, that is an opportunity for computers, machine learning, and possibly even real AI to bring real value and to help in an enormous societal and evolution, frankly.
Hey, this is Steph. I agree. I certainly think that true AI can be used for all sorts of nasty things. But I think that given the concerns of like groups like us, I can't help but feel like there would be rules put in place, but also that it is the evolution of the jobs. How many of us remember the lamplighters who would go up and down the streets lighting gas lamps outside? No. I don't. No. My take on AI is, and deep learning, is that I'm really looking forward to using more of it. I'm just getting into it, but my thing is as an extension of accessibility. Because if I can learn about you and what kind of special needs you may have to interact with my websites or my apps or my devices, then I can help you have a better experience or get education or anything faster and more accurately.
We were talking last night, I want to say it, the virtual happy hour, but whatever it was, they educated me on articles written by AI. What do you all think of that? I kind of, the way I see it is it's basically searching for words, common words, and then they put it together. And then I really don't know how an article would be written from that, but I feel like it would be, in a way, all true, because it's basically a computer just picking up the facts. But then again, it's the internet, so it's not like, it's not like it's in the Library of Congress or anything like that. So what do you all think of articles written by AI?
This is Steph again. Were there any examples shared?
No, I don't know. I don't know. We were also discussing, like, maybe it would be more ethical if, it was written, authored by AI or something like that, or so-and-so bot. But
I'm searching for an example because there's a, now I'm going to show my hand that I have like superficial knowledge, but there's a consortium, there's an AI consortium that is, they were committed to publishing all their findings in the open, but I think it was 6 months ago, they had a ridiculously effective algorithm in play that was actually constructing free text based on, like, you open a sentence and it constructs an article. And it was controversial because it was the first thing they didn't actually publish the model because they thought it was actually dangerous. So I was trying to find, a link. Awesome. I'll continue looking for that link because it is it's sort of hilarious and sort of unnerving. And I don't think we're there yet, but the ridiculous rate of change on deep learning, and I think, I studied a bit of cognitive science in college, and I don't think the approach, we shouldn't be surprised that deep learning is effective. And in fact, that it's ridiculously effective in ways that we are having trouble justifying. Like, that's a common refrain in the academic literature, is that these processes are extremely effective, And the gains we've taken in facial recognition and stuff. I remember I was in school, I was a grad student at MIT in 2005, and a notion of having facial recognition be something that was going to happen in 10 years was just not there. And then suddenly it was there, and we sort of moved so far beyond that now. So I don't think we're at the place where AI is writing articles that are of particular use or super eloquent, but they are writing articles that seem to be written by humans. So I don't think they're insightful. I don't think they're creative. I don't think they're offering new perspective, but they are making complete sentences and making sense on a variety of scales. So like word to word, sentence to sentence, paragraph to paragraph, it's actually a composition, and it is a unique composition, but it doesn't have insights yet. So I'm going to find some examples, and if I can, I'll put them in the links here. But
awesome, thank you. Yeah, I mean, to that point, I guess it's like fudged photographs have been around since there were photographs. So why not fudged articles? And I think it's going to be so much more incumbent on the readers, like buyer beware, that the content you're reading is real or hasn't been altered in a negative spirit. And that, I don't know, because you know what, I keep just coming back to what Noah said about people like, if it's on the internet, it must be true. And I'm like, yeah, but anybody can put anything on the internet, and that makes it completely untrustworthy as a source, unless you know it's like, I don't know, like a source, like the Library of Congress or Harvard or, you know, a legitimate SMA. I'm still excited though. I like the idea that there's an AI consortium. I'm going to go look them up and see if I can join. But I don't know. I feel like, you know what I feel like is in my mind are all of the AI movies where everything has gone horribly wrong.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm not going to lie. The, what is it? The Matrix is all in my head right now.
So this is Lily, and I'm just going to be a kind of a pain in the ass. But one of the things that I don't know if you've ever read Rudy Rucker's stuff at all, but the concept of reality is that reality is strictly consensual. We all agree that blue is blue, even the poor colorblind people, but because it's a consensual reality thing. So who's to say that just because an AI wrote something that it isn't real? It's as real as if I write something. And so the possibility exists that with enough of that content out there, it could be an interesting experiment to see AI actually totally change reality simply because you know, if we get the quantum computers doing this stuff, they'll just be able to write so much more than the humans that our entire reality will be defined by the flood from them.
Yeah, but wouldn't the same be true then when the first computers came out, that our life became redefined by the flood from our current computers? Like I remember my Commodore 64.
Yeah, I do too. I had one too. Yeah, I agree. Yes, that's what I'm saying is that I guess my point was in sort of in response to you, Stephanie, when you're saying about you have to figure out what's real, and what an AI writes is just as real.
And you're right. And maybe I shouldn't have said real. Maybe I should have said human derived.
Yeah, I mean, and that, but is something that an AI, I mean, then we're going to start getting into the whole concept of consciousness and all that kind of fun stuff. But
well, yeah, it does get a little Kevin Bacon-y, but
yes. Well, yeah, and also just trippy. But I mean, I think I don't know if it was you, Stephanie, or Noah, or even Charles, who said, you know, maybe it's about attribution, about saying this came from Really Dwight - wetware. This came from Jumbo - hardware. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a labeling convention in the beginning, right? Because yeah, like consciousness is a huge component of AI. Because then you really get into ethics. Like,
is it ethical to pull the plug on
right.
a truly AI?
I have an answer for that. Or
Go.
I think that it's unethical to pull the plug. They say for safety purposes, you know, or can you shoot a bot? And I think the answer is really no, because it's someone else's property. Or if you do shoot it, then there's repercussions, and then there's going to be laws written about that. But it's someone's personal property; they own it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the first group of laws would be about physical property and then intellectual property.
Yeah, exactly.
And then as AI becomes more sentient, individual and I say individual property, and I'm thinking the ownership of self.
Wow.
I don't know. It's so nuts, and I'm so looking forward to it. I mean, right now I'm just really trying to learn TensorFlow so I can make my search results better. You know, like I work for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and so, you know, my immediate context is stressed out people looking up information using words that are incredibly long and complicated, and just trying to get them to where they need to be faster and more accurately. You know, that's my immediate concept of AI and deep learning. But yeah, I mean, we could all have interactive pets, right? Sentient interactive pets before the end of our span on Earth. It's possible. I mean, the iPhone is only 12 years old. Do you remember your phone before the iPhone era? Do you remember what that was? I had a Nokia thing, and I don't even think it folded. You know, like I looked it up the other day, and it was all these like ugly, like blocky, huge Nokias, and then all of a sudden there was the iPhone. And it's like, and now like our future state is going to be like, and all of a sudden here's quantum computing and quantum algorithm. And then all of a sudden your pets, or, you know, you're interfacing with a computer that, you know, recognizes you by sight. And I'm thinking more of the, you know, the Google device that's behind me on my desk. But things that can interact with you on a more natural level. I don't know if they'll be bipedal, but honestly, I also hope that, for whatever it's worth, and then I hope someone else takes the floor, I would love to see AI in the regard, and deep learning in the regards of robotics for people who need physical support, like artificial limbs or help with stairs, or I mean, even nursing home help to help people get, you know, move people around, you know, that there is some component that, you know, forks off and becomes smarter robotics and better robotics for people with physical disabilities.
Does anybody else know about technologies like that that we haven't discussed?
Silicon Valley that a friend of mine was working for, I don't know if it's imploded yet, but they were developing fabric. And I don't think, so it's interesting, it's a question, it's not really AI, it's just a really smart fabric that actually gave you the strength to stand up if you were an older adult, kind of a thing. So they were doing it mostly with a focus on people with wasting diseases and like age. But that isn't, so that's not artificial intelligence. That is like an intensely learned vertical knowledge, I think.
Could it be a deep learning application then?
Yeah. I think so.
I mean, because I could also see that fabric, if it could withstand electrical pulses, being used to help like stimulate muscles for people who don't move around well. All right, think back in the day, like cases of polio were treated with electric shocks to to stimulate the nerves and the muscles.
Right. Right.
So
Well,
maybe there's something there.
There are exoskeletons that are working to. There's a company called Rewalk that was that based in Israel that's had an exoskeleton for a few years where they've got people who are paralyzed from the waist down able to walk, but that's using the nerve stimulus. Well, their first thing came from their manual commands, but now they're working on nerve connections with the brain. So it's sort of straying away from your question about AI and ruling the world, but it's much more along the lines of the blending of wetware and hardware, which is also an interesting thing.
Yes.
A different conversation.
Please refresh my memory. What's wetware?
Oh, you are. I am. We are
That's
humans.
right.
Wetware.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mickey made a really interesting point about when I was talking about the reality. So Mickey, can you talk?
Yeah, jump in, Mickey.
Remind me, what was that?
You had said in the chat, what about the inaccuracies of AI facial recognition?
Yeah, I'd love to know what people think about the inaccuracies of the AI when it's written by one class of people and enacted on other classes of people that do not have any access to get in on writing it or even know what it is or when it's being used upon them.
Yeah, I think you've really hit on something special here, because I think this also kind of ties into what Noah was saying about coding in our personal biases. I'd like to think it would happen intentionally, but I think the both of you are 100% correct. I hope that using facial recognition in the way you've described in the chat is a long way off still, because I could.
It's already happening.
Is it?
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
Right, Mickey. I mean, I sort of assumed you got that from the actual. They've shown that the AI recognition of looking for possible criminals is all designed around young black men wearing hoodies.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Yes, AI is definitely a polarizer. And
yeah.
it's used on those who have no recourse to defend against it or even understand what it is. This technology has been used since 1963.
63?
63.
Good grief.
I would cite my source. It's a documentary on YouTube, but I would have to do a little digging for that. But as I said, I have most of these resources on my freescholar.net site under the resource link. And it's just tons and tons of links about AI all over the world and how governments are using it and how large corporations are using it and how they have been. And now, of course, with the surveillance capitalism into effect, it is being used for predictive analysis. And William Barr, our attorney general or whatever, has put a bill before Congress to allow the government to merge your AI profile with your social media and your doctors and everything else, and determine if you are a candidate to likely to have mental illness or to create a crime. So, and that is a bill that it's listed on my site. There's a link right on the top of the resources page. You can see the actual bill.
I'm gonna go look that up right now. That is
It's disgusting. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing and it's awful, and I could absolutely see, like, I absolutely understand when people are concerned about AI becoming a problem, and having examples like this that of course I agree that AI is not awesome all the time.
Yeah.
Well, but it's a great example of how it's being so completely misused.
Well, AI is awesome, but when you merge all the other things outside of it that it's bundled with, it becomes devastating for some people.
Yeah.
Like just an example of now that, there's Cambridge Analytica, stuff like that. Large corporations are buying data about you, the employee. Suppose you buy a pregnancy test. Well, you'd probably be fired in the morning for something else, like being late last week before that topic could even come up, or even before you even took the pregnancy test. They just have it on their radar. Joan bought a pregnancy test. Get rid of her.
Yeah, that falls into every category of, like, sci-fi apocalypse book, movie. No, I'm serious. Like, it's the only thing that I can, think of for a valid reference is, like, how 1984 can we possibly get? Apparently we can get 2020.
Well, you have to realize Hollywood was merged with the government and still is. So a lot of the things that we are shown as sci-fi are not. I mean, I'm probably sure if you go through your network, you could find someone who was consulted on writing a script for some of these scary movies.
You've got me curious. I will check. I can say that I've got one friend who gives historical information to the History Channel, though.
Yeah. Cool.
So, gosh, I'm gonna check, because that would be intense. And now I'm curious, and so I want to go find out.
Excellent.
And I also, like, now I really want to get into the AI consortium, because I think transparency is going to prevent a lot of this naughtiness from getting out there.
It might prevent some, yeah. But when it's hard-coded in there and the people you're talking to and governments don't have any clue what coding is, it's
no,
easy
you're
to
right.
make it awry. And that's why I'm a proponent of free software, so that we can look at what the software is doing to us, for us, and on us. If we don't have that, we're totally gone.
So that's really amazing information for ethics. I did not even think of that stuff.
Well, I actually just wrote a little thing about Zoom. Zoom has the right to give your information on any participants to anyone, that corporations, governments, etc. And so I was at a meeting the other day. They're using Zoom, and some young man disclosed that he had a penchant for liking underage children. Well, is he going to be wiped away now just because he said this? Or is he going to get treatment? I don't know.
That is an excellent question.
So, Noah, do we have till 5?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So, is there anyone technical here? I was wondering, if we were to develop, like through machine learning, you would have to develop questions in order to develop this AI database, data sets. Would anybody know what kind of questions are good questions and how to start asking them? Or would you have to have a certain application in order to start thinking of this?
I can just speak to my experience, but I'm going to see if anybody else has anything. I can tell you what I had to do, but we'll wait to see if anybody else has anything.
I think you should go, Noah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right. Typically, the systems I've used, and I've used like TensorFlow, there's a few different. So I was doing a specific task, which was text classification. It's a pretty well-known task. And in that case, what you need almost always with machine learning, either a statistical model or the neural network model. So there's different topologies of networks. But basically, the training phase is super duper critical, and more data, the better.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have, so the kind of thing, the training data set I used, for example, we had to have 2,000 student responses for one question. So we had, we knew the domain. The domain was the answer to a specific prompt for the students. And we had 2,000 examples of what students responded with. And then we also had 2,000 examples of how a human reader evaluated the student responses. So that's a typical training data set.
And how is this physically generated? Is it in a survey?
Yeah, well, in this case, this is online. So this is an online piece of online curriculum. So students were, as part of their schoolwork, answering questions online, and researchers were collecting their answers, and teachers were grading the students' answers using a rubric for the grading purposes. And basically, they were given a score for their answer, like in a 0 to 5 range. But there's subtleties about what kind of, encoded in the rubric, I should say, were subtleties about evidence of specific kinds of misunderstandings. So we had a correlation between 2,000, like if you can imagine, the way the computer thinks about the text is just that it's a string of characters, right? The training data set is like between 0 and 1,000 alphanumeric characters. That's the input, and the output is the teacher's score. The machine learning model maps the string of characters to answers using a neural network topology. It's sort of complicated, but that's very common. Is what you need is a lot of data, and you need examples of how to classify a particular answer. There are numerical models that are somewhat different. So there's actually some really great online visual introductions to machine learning. Okay. And one talks about trying to optimize apartment searches based on predicting the market, given where a place is, its location, what floor the room is on, how many square feet, the ability to predict what the price of that apartment will be per month. And that's a numerical statistical model. It's different. But even in that case, in both cases, what you need is a lot of input, examples of how that input translates to output. So you actually need a full data set. You need somebody to do the original work. So depending on what your domain is, it's going to vary, right? And I'm trying to think about image classifiers are the same. So like you could have 2,000 pictures of either dogs or cats, and you label them dog or cat. That has to be the input going into your machine learning model. You need a lot of examples. I don't know.
Right, and there's lots of examples of criminals as Black people.
Exactly. This is totally the problem. Yeah, it basically hyper accentuates our pre-existing biases. Yeah.
Yeah, it amplifies. It really amplifies. And because it creates new reality, it then self-perpetuates. I mean, that's the basis of machine learning, right?
Mickey, I saw your presentation last year. You were the keynote speaker.
Oh, yes, that was me.
I didn't know that was you.
I didn't want any influence. Yeah, that was really fun. And Nerd Summit is just an awesome, awesome thing. I'm hoping that one of the upswings of this horrible era is that we're online more, talking with each other in groups, and that Nerd Summit could happen every week.
Yes. Yeah, I also put in the presentation, my abstract at the bottom. I wrote my goals or my other meetup agenda items. So I'm going to think of that and then figure out, I don't know, I'll ask Kelly how you can keep this type of stuff going. I mean, because Zoom, I don't have a full subscription, so I only have 30 minutes free, and then otherwise I'd have to subscribe. So who knows if there's resources out there.
We don't need Zoom. We really don't need Zoom. There's
What-
Jitsi, which is absolutely free and free
What do you
software.
suggest?
That Jitsi,
Jitsi?
JIT.SI. It's free and no one has to download or install anything. You can password protect rooms. It's wonderful.
Well, now we have 3
So I'll
minutes.
try to fill.
Does anyone else have additional thoughts, ideas that you want to end with? I want to thank Kelly and Rick Hood and the organizers and the attendees, sponsors, volunteers, everyone who worked really hard at this Nerd Summit. It's been a great experience, and it always is. So if anybody has, does or doesn't have any last minute comments, we'll let you go.
I'll give you applause.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great enjoyable session.
Thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome. Thank
Awesome
you.
stuff.
All right, have a great conference.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Back to my meatballs.
Yeah, you're the
Bye-bye.
baseball person.